Interesting here.
Yeah, I've just been updating some of our viewers what's happening with the Mercedes, the Golf, and the Civic, and the fact that the Santa Pod has sadly now been postponed, hasn't it?
Well, it's had to be because you're only really allowed to travel for essential reasons,
Yeah,
and that I'm sad to say, much to the shock it will come to your viewers, that is not an essential reason.
I know it is. I mean, we've seen a lot of this already this year, haven't we? I mean, most of the shows that you and I were going to attend have been either completely cancelled or postponed.
Yeah, Bromley pageant that's been put forward a year, um, which is a bit of a shame. I was
Well,
really looking forward to that. Sorry.
Geneva.
Geneva Motor Show. The big one for both of us, I think, though, was the NEC Practical Classics Restoration Show.
I know we were both looking forward to that. We would have had a few days worth of content. We were going to meet up with the rubbish mechanic and all types of things, weren't we?
Yeah. Well, he was on a stand. Ian Seabrook was going to be there. Hubnut, he was going to bring his Reliant Fox. We're both going to see him again. Obviously, we've met up with him a few times before in the past and everything.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a huge. I mean, there would have been loads of other people there who we would have known. Thousands of cars would have seen Mr. Coleman's Alpha getting some brakes on it, but it's just not meant to be. Obviously, it's just that things go. And ourselves, however, have. But,
I mean, every aren't they?
sorry, I missed that last bit. It lagged a bit.
I know it did. Everybody's in the same boat. It's not just us, it's everybody.
It's not just this country either. It's the entire world, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And that's it. We're all clubbing together and making sure that there's content and car stuff going out for people. Because let's face it, a lot of the press cars, obviously, have been stopped, which is sad. But,
I
we've
think
already got archives of stuff, haven't we?
I think probably Suzuki was the last manufacturer still running press cars.
Mm. But that's what
Um,
happened. Isn't it? What would you like to discuss then in this little chat?
well, what we can discuss is a little preview of the podcast series that you and I have decided to do because there isn't really a lot else we can do. I'm not. I drive a lot of viewers' cars, and I can't do that because there is a risk actually to both me and potential viewers that if the car's not properly disinfected, one of us might catch a virus.
Exactly.
And also, it's non-essential travel to go and see these cars. So I know my next door neighbour around here, he's got a BMW he's offered me, but I'm hesitant to even touch that because
Is that the lowered one to the right-hand side that I've seen?
sorry.
Is that the lowered one?
No, it's a different one.
Oh, he's got another now.
Yeah, that's his friend's car.
Ooh.
It's yeah, it's an E46. E46s are sort of standard ones anyway, are quite inexpensive at the moment,
Yeah.
unless they're really, really nice. So he picked his up for less than 1,000, I think, and that would have gone on no budget reviews, no problem. Unfortunately, I can't review it because even if he's just over there, um, we're really not supposed to go in something that's someone
No,
else's house, effectively someone's car.
exactly.
Um, so we can't do that. And you know, Suzuki probably is one of the last manufacturers um, to actually offer press cars to people at the moment. That stopped literally yesterday.
Yeah.
Dealerships around, I sometimes get cars in dealerships. Most of them have closed.
Yeah.
The service and repair side of things is open. On some of them, obviously, it's essential MOTs and services continue for certain people, but a lot of them have closed their entire operations.
Mm.
So we can't get them from dealerships. I had two cars from a dealership over the weekend, but that will be it for the time being. And so what we're going to do is talk about some general motoring topics.
Yes.
I know that actually a lot of the viewers on Planet Auto, when you go round and do the shows, they like to see things like old Fords, old Volkswagens, possibly Mercedes, BMWs. For me, it tends to be a lot of British cars people like. And so we're going to spend a bit of time now, not a huge amount of time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, just talking about our first our first topic, which we'll then probably record on Anchor FM and put out as a sort of podcast as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I gather your first car of all was actually a Ford, wasn't it?
Yeah, a rear-wheel drive on a Y plate, Y776YHH, a 1.6L, and it'd be the second model, wouldn't it? Because it was the one that had the color-coded grille, but still had the rectangular headlamps.
Yes, the base model Sierra, and they're very, very rare. For the first couple of years, had a black plastic grille. You don't see many of them because you had an L. You would have had a color-coded grille.
Yeah, brown.
Yeah. How much did that car cost you? Can you remember?
$595.
Sounds like a bargain to me. How old was it at the time? 15 years, 17 years?
It was Y plate. So Y plate would be what, 80?
82, 83.
Okay. 10 years probably.
Yeah, so the Sierra was launched late 82 on a Y plate.
Yeah.
So that would be the first year of production.
Yeah.
And the L was the 1.6 Pinto engine. But also wanted the Capri. Not the Granada, because that was too big.
Yeah.
Not any front-wheel drive cars, because the Mark III's got a CVH engine, which is different.
Yeah.
The Pinto only went in rear-wheel drive cars, so it was used in the Capri and also in the Sierra. And did you ever
I added a lot.
Sorry?
I put a Cosworth back box on it. I also put it in a 2-litre injection GLS interior, which I found in a Breakers, and that had front seats. Can you remember the pumps you used to get where you could pump up the front seat?
Yeah. I can't remember what cars they came on, but I do know of them, yeah.
And either Cortina or Granada alloys. You know, they look a bit like OZ Racing ones, but with silver.
Yeah, I think I would have had, I think probably Cortina rather than Granada, because Granada wheels don't fit a Cortina.
What would they be, 5-stud or 4-stud? Or was it a different offset?
I don't remember, but you can't put Granada wheels on a Cortina or vice versa. You can't do that. You can put Cortina wheels on a Capri.
Yeah, that would make sense.
You can't. Yeah, you can put them on a Capri. You can't put them on a Granada. So sometimes you see Capris with Cortina gear wheels on them or something like that. But of course, the Fords were sort of a whole mixture of configurations. They weren't all front wheel drive like they are now. You could Sierra was rear wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. The Granada was rear wheel drive, and then the Fiesta and the Escort and the Orion, they were all front wheel drive.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, but some of the ones that strike me as 4-wheel drive were the XR 4x4 and the Cosworth 4x4.
Yeah, the XR 4x4 is I think a very long forgotten car because
they were amazing. I loved them. Mind you, that followed on from the XR 4i, didn't it?
Well, they were produced for a little while together.
Really?
Then the Cosworth hatch came out.
Yep.
And then they sort of combined the XR 4x4 and the Cosworth into a saloon body and call it the Sapphire Cosworth.
Yep.
That was after the facelift. I think the Sapphire Cosworth came out about 87.
Yeah.
A very popular conversion is if you actually make your Sapphire Cosworth rear-wheel drive only.
Yeah.
That's quite a popular conversion. Obviously, it means the tail comes out quite handily. One of these days, we hope to get Mr. Coleman, Rubbish Mechanic, onto Instagram Live or podcast or something. And he's an expert on Fords of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
he's owned 300 cars, and he actually has a collection of things like Granadas and Cortinas he uses for banger racing.
Yeah,
and those are very, very rare cars now. Actually, Cortinas of any description, or Granadas, or actually Mark 1 and 2 Escorts. They're very, very expensive indeed. All of those, because the Escorts weren't good for banger racing. You don't see so many of those. But the Cortinas of Granada are superb for banger racing, so they went quite quickly. Also, as you said, that the car you had was about 10 years old,
Yeah.
first one, and
Well,
Sierra weren't quick.
the other car that was for sale then was the Manta Berlinetta, I think it was.
Berlina.
Berlina?
Berlina, yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't get a GTE, but there were a lot of Manta 2 litres. A lot of.
Yeah, it's a cam in head engine, sort of Vauxhall. But Mantas, there's actually one that lives quite near to where I am in Hampshire. It's a gold one, and that is a very late one. It's a 1986.
They were always coloured like that, weren't they? Burgundies, golds, silvers, and white, primarily.
Silver is a classic colour for a Manta, but a Manta's, the engineering is very old-fashioned in a Manta. It's from the Mark I Cavalier, or the also known as a Mark II. The Ascona B, you call it on the continent. It's going to be. And so, again, a bit like the Capri, it's sort of like a rear-wheel drive car with a much more old-fashioned sort of layout than the other things that were on the market in the 1980s. Ford and General Motors decided to keep them going for a while. Yeah. What do you think a Manta would have been a better car than your Sierra?
It was a hard decision. I think my mum steered me more for the Sierra because it was a biggish, strong car and it had a 1600 as opposed to a 2 litre, because I was also looking at a Mark I Fiesta with a stage 2 head conversion and quarter bumpers. And that was like a super sport, but heavily modified. But she wouldn't let me get that. She knew I'd kill myself.
Yeah, again, and like a Mark I Fiesta at the time would have been really cheap. My uncle had a 1978 Ford Fiesta in the early 90s, and it was gold with a black wing because the wing had gone rusty. So my other uncle had I think given it to him, or sold it to him really cheaply, and it was his wife's car or something. And Mark I Fiestas at the time were just like sort of not ashtrays exactly. They weren't like that, but they were just
to a penny.
Completely disposable. They had no value whatsoever. If you it's like a Ford car would be today. It's Ford cars, the original ones. They really don't have much value. Maybe a street car or a sport car, but the standard ones don't have a lot of value when they go rusty. Exactly like that.
Golf. If you remember, the Mark I Golf was the same, especially if I.
Yeah. They don't have value.
One Golf. I can't think of any. What else was there? Not really the Renault 5s. Uno, maybe? Was that slightly after?
The Uno was 83 that came out, so that was a bit of a newer car.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, yeah, because they all started changing for hot hatches then, didn't they? And you got things like the Mark I Golf GTI, and you got the Uno Turbo IE and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at some point in the future, we'll do one of these on Fiats and Volkswagens. But yeah, obviously, it helps the context as to what was available in the market at the time. And we forget we see these cars in shows. I mean, you don't see things like Unos just around. You don't see them. Jettas, Mark I and Jettas, you don't see them apart from in shows. No. The only time I've seen Jettas regularly, Mark Is and Mark Is, has been at things like Retro Rides Weekender.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any apart from that. I saw an amazing Mark I Jetta Retro Rides Weekender at Goodwood last May, but I've not seen one before that for probably 20 years. It's just crazy, isn't it? And then things like your Sierra, I know there was a car show, wasn't there, last summer that was local to where you were, but you saw a very similar Sierra.
Yes.
But I can't remember the last time I saw like a Sierra L pre-facelift one.
Well, it's like our Mark II. You don't see many Mark II Golfs. You see more Mark II Golfs than you do Jettas. But the one car that you don't really see frequently now, and that I had a number of, is the Mark II Orion. Yeah,
exactly. You had 1.6s, weren't they? Well, 1.6 gears or 600 eyes.
Yeah.
And they had the same engine, I think, as an XR3i.
Yep.
They were pretty quick, weren't they?
They were all right. Yeah, they were They were quite fun as well, especially if you lowered them like I did with every car I owned. You know, Spax suspension kit and then a base level body kit. I mean, if I turn my camera that way,
Yeah,
and I sit up a bit,
yeah. I can see some Fords. I can see body kits as well.
yeah, there's an Orion with an Illusion body kit.
So your mother had an Orion, didn't she?
She did.
And then you had a Sierra, an 80, we'll call it an 83.
Yeah.
And then you then moved on from the Sierra. What happened to your Sierra?
The gearbox went. So I had second, fourth, and reverse. And in the end,
No, not good.
and I had to reverse it all the way back from the shore where we do all the reviews of the cars now. Well, the off-roady bits.
Yeah.
And I reverse it all the way back to the drive, and then I had to scrap it because the gearbox had gone. It used to regularly shoot out the gear stick anyway. If you were sat driving and decided to change gears, sometimes it had just literally jumped 2 foot out of the box.
Yeah. What's really funny about the gearbox in your Sierra, I think it was a 4-speed, so that would be, I think it's called the type, sorry?
It was.
Yeah, that would be the Type 4 gearbox. And then there's a Type 9 gearbox, which is the 5-speed version of the Type 4. Now, there is a small difference between the two. I've been told what it is, but I can't remember. But that gearbox in your Sierra was a really, really common swap into a Morris Minor about the time that you owned your Sierra. Because that gearbox will go pretty much straight into a Morris Minor.
That is so...
Yeah.
You don't know.
And then the other common swap into a Morris Minor is a Fiat twin cam engine, say from a Fiat 131. So if you have a Fiat one, obviously Fiat 131s by the time that you had your Sierra were kind of rare. They didn't have very good rust protection. So if you wanted to enhance your Morris Minor experience, you could put in a Fiat twin cam engine and you could put in a Type 4 or Type 9 gearbox. With modification, obviously, but it would fit quite nicely. So, yeah, Sierras, the reason we don't see so many Sierras, probably low second-hand values, rust, because they used to rust pretty badly, didn't they?
They did. Well, most Fords did then.
Yeah, it was most cars did, I think.
Yeah, well, even, my Orion life, I then moved on to a 1.1 Fiesta Festival.
Yeah, you had was it 5 1980s Fords in a row?
Yeah.
So you had Sierra, Orion, Fiesta.
Yeah.
They were just. I remember when I was growing up, these cars were just everywhere.
Yeah.
You just saw them everywhere. My uncle had a Mark II Fiesta, as well as it was a 1.1. It was quite an early Mark II, but the Mark II and Mark I were very similar. It was a pretty heavy facelift, and obviously the interior was different. In a Mark II Fiesta, you had 2 different dashboards completely.
You did.
I really don't know why. It was like the Sierra had a load of different types of steering wheel, didn't it?
Did, yeah.
Depending on trim level, and the front fascia was completely different. I think there are 3 or 4 different front ends on a just a pre-facelift Sierra, and then obviously there were different ones on a post-facelift.
Yeah.
It just. Oh, are you still there?
I don't know why it paused. Yeah, no, you're right. Ford saw it as a great opportunity to make these cars look a touch different each time. And because of it, it appealed to a different audience, didn't it?
Yeah, because your 1.6L Sierra was all the same range as a 2.8 gear.
Yeah.
And maybe the estate version, and they were really different cars. Their differences were amazing. They even had different door mirrors on the gears as opposed to yours, because yours would have had the weird door mirrors, wouldn't it?
It had the ones that had like a hinge at the top and folded in.
Yeah, it was. Why on earth would you design 2 different types of door mirror?
It was an interesting thing then, because nowadays you see so many different parts that are reused on different models. So many cars will use similar switchgear. But back then, they seemed to just, I don't know, throw money at it and try and create something different, regardless of model.
It's strange how these little differences can make a huge difference to the car. So the interior on a Fiesta, if you've got the XR2 or the gear interior, it makes a huge difference to the car. Put a couple of spot lamps on the front of the Mark II. The car is so much nicer, and these sort of relatively cheap little bits will make you want to trade up a few trim levels, so your car looks a bit nicer. Whereas these days,
people did. If you remember, the Festival had the XR2 dashboard with the rev counter, as opposed to the clock and the earlier dash. You know, the black surround around the clocks.
Yeah.
It was a shortened side on the passenger, so the passenger's knees were closer to the glove box because it was set back a bit. And I put a Sibby Super Oscars on the front and some super light wheels and one pepper pot, because I could only get 3 super lights.
Oh my gosh.
It looked like an XR2, and I lowered it on Spac springs.
What happened to your Fiesta, sir?
That was horrible. I was sat, well, initially, I was driving down Coastal Road between Morecambe and Silverdale, and I set off down the road, and I started to indicate left into a drive. I then pulled the car literally maybe 2 wheel lengths into the drive, and next thing I know, I look left, and there's a Polo that has mounted the curb and is trying to undertake me whilst I'm parked parallel to a drive. And just,
what a complete idiot. What an idiot.
Well, yeah, she was. I mean, she was an absolute crazy fool. And she hit it that hard, she bent the rear axle of a Mark II Fiesta.
But your car was written off, wasn't it, completely?
Yeah, the rear wing was completely caved in and the rear axle was bent. And I love that car. And the other sad thing is I'd had it MOT'd on that day. And I told her...
So how many months did you actually own that?
Probably about 13, I think.
Did you get another Ford after that as well?
No, I went after that. I was so annoyed and so gutted about that. I thought I'd try something else. So I went after a Mark II Golf GTI 8 valve.
So the Fiesta, I presume, didn't have anywhere near the same performance as your Orions?
No, that was slow. It had a K&N air filter, and I had a Magnex exhaust on that as well, like the Golf. It sounded nice, but it wasn't particularly fast, but it would outhandle most cars because it had wheels. I
think on your Fiesta, that would have been less than 60 horsepower, wouldn't it? About 50?
Yeah, something like that. 57, I was thinking. I mean, it might not even be that.
But they don't weigh anything. What, 700 kilos, something like that? 700?
Well under a ton.
Because I know a G40 Polo is about 850.
Yeah, and they're not slow.
They're not. I mean, they are ridiculous. I've driven a G40, and again, we get into talking about 80s, 90s Volkswagens, we'll go into a bit more, but that weighs about the same as a packet of crisps, and it's got a supercharger, and they are a real handful, particularly with no power steering. The torque steer on them is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Did you get torque steer on your 3 Orion, wasn't it? It was 3 Orions, because your mother had one, and then you had 3. That's right, isn't it?
I've never had torque steer on any Ford that I've driven ever, bar a Mark III RS Turbo.
Oh my gosh.
And that thing was scary. I mean, you put your foot down, that had crazy torque steer. It tried to pull you into hedges and things. But I'm expecting when we've put the Mark II Golf back on the road with this ABF engine and, you know, ported, polished head, gas flowed, you name it, that is going to be pulling 0 to 60 in about 6.3, which is considerably faster than the 7.8.
Yeah, because the RS Turbo, based on the Escort Mark III, was only available, I think 84, 85 was it.
Yeah.
And the most prominent things you can see that in is probably cat size. And they had 2 of them in cat size.
Yeah.
They had, in the second series, Leslie Ash had a white one, and what's her name? Tracy Louise Ward had a blue one. But Mark 3 RS Turbos were not available in that colour generally.
No. Yeah.
And Ford made them a special RS Turbo 4 Cat's Eyes in that colour.
Well, that's it. A lot of B companies then thought, oh, we can get our car seen by an interesting audience then. So they would be willing to do special colours for things like that, wouldn't they? So they shine out from the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast on just Fords used in television series, and we won't obviously do that tonight.
We're on our time already, Joseph.
We are. We'll have to sort of maybe go into that another thing. But yes, the Ford were very keen to get their cars on television, and you know, the Sweeney was example, Professionals, Dempsey and Makepeace, Cat's Eyes, all of these used Fords. Sorry?
Juliet Bravo, Mark III Escort or Mark II Escort?
I don't know if Juliet Bravo had like a marketing thing, because in that it was a BBC series and they were kind of had very strict guidelines and product placement in those. But
I remember Fords in it, though. I definitely remember.
Yeah, there would have been some in, but I don't know if they were factory supplied. You'd have to look at the plates and stuff. But
yeah.
Anyway, I think we'll draw this Instagram live to a close. Thank you for everyone who has joined us. I keep seeing people at the bottom of the screen who are joining in and seeing what we're doing. We've just been doing a little sample of what we're going to be going ahead with, which is a podcast on the Planet Auto and Lloyd Vehicle Consulting YouTube channels. But we'll be talking about...
Just going Lloyd Vehicle Consulting on Instagram today. So go and follow him on Instagram and you'll see some of the cool cars and things that he does. He does a lot of his own budget reviews. He also does some of the tweed jacket stuff as well. So check him out. And yeah, we've got our YouTube and various car reviews and all types of things coming. And Joseph and I were supposed to be doing lots of things together in the, well, literally in the next week. But as we all know, we cancelled. So hopefully we'll get to go to Goodwood Festival of Speed together, but who knows? Yes,
I mean, they're hopeful that's going to happen, and that's great. You know, by that time, the 3 months of whatever it is that a lot of people are under should be over, and things should be back to normal by then. Let's believe that's the case.
Indeed. Right. Nice chatting. Goodbye.
Bye.